Podcast today's show at rte.ie/today with Sean O'Rourke.
Anxiety disorders, as they're called, affect many children. So how do parents know when a child's anxiety or fear is just a passing phase or perhaps something more serious? And how best then to approach the issue? Well, Roisin O'Hara has been looking into this area. She joins us now from our studio in Galway. Good morning again, Roisin.
Good morning, Sean.
I'm sure there are plenty or very many anxious children and indeed adults out there now as back to school time gets ever closer.
Well, there are indeed. I have to say I'm one of those. I have my second fella is starting school next week, primary school. And like so many parents throughout the country, I'm busy gathering all the bits and pieces over the weekend and ticking off the checklist. And I was delighted when I found a big, bad, angry bird school bag for him, which I'm sure is going to arm him with all the self-confidence he needs and ensure his popularity among his classmates.
One other thing to do, and you can't do it at the school, but do it before he leaves the house, and you do take a picture.
Absolutely. Well, of course, that goes without saying in today's world of Facebook mommies, where we have to do that, and we're giving a great sense of calm in the morning of going to school. But really, it can be an anxious time for many parents, you know, and especially if your child has an anxious disposition already. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of children suffer from separation anxiety, which is a fear of being apart from their parents, and it can lead to awful tantrums and distress in the first few weeks of school. And I have spoken to a family therapist, a leading family therapist here in the West, and we'll hear pointers on how to deal with all of that a little bit later.
So before we deal with separation anxiety, I suppose you could have any kind of an anxiety, but what are the other more common or usual childhood anxieties, Roisin?
Well, there are an awful lot, Sean. I mean, they vary. Like, we all know about children who are afraid of the dark. I mean, I suppose we've all been there. And a lot of children actually develop fears and phobias about certain foods. But one of the most common ones, I suppose, is children who develop an irrational or an excessive fear of a specific object or a situation, and they'll do anything to avoid it. I have that at home myself. My 5-year-old is absolutely petrified of the bath. For love nor money will he get into it for me. Now, I hasten to add, he does take a shower, but I suppose it's an example of the common anxieties that us parents have to deal with. And I, like so many others, just ignore it, pass it off as a phase, because it doesn't impede on our lives too much, and they'll grow out of it.
And I think you have another one about a particular supermarket that a child wants to steer clear of.
Yes, my little girl, who's a great sociable character, just absolutely will tear the car asunder if I tell her that I'm going to a particular supermarket. She will go ballistic because she encountered a poor unfortunate drunken man who scared the wits out of her one day, and she just won't go back ever since. So, these are little things that we all have to deal with. I
suppose usually you can get over those things or work through them, or maybe a lollipop can be a great cure in certain situations. But at what point do anxieties, do they become clinically significant to the point of being disorders?
Yeah, it becomes a problem when it becomes too intense. It's too prolonged, and it starts getting in the way of their normal functioning. For example, if they won't go to bed, if they can't get sleep, if they don't want to go to school, and if they're not making friends. Now, I'm told if a child is consistently complaining of feeling unwell, stomach aches and all that, if they're worrying a lot, if they're having negative thoughts and asking questions and crying a lot, and there's no reasoning with them, and also if they start displaying challenging behaviour, and that's where it really gets hard for parents, Sean, when they're throwing tantrums and they're nearly uncontrollable, really.
Time for some expert advice. So what have you been hearing?
Yeah, now a general approach that's recommended is to first and foremost listen to your child, recognise their issue and acknowledge it, as being real for them. I mean, quite often, we fob it off. I do, sure, will you stop that, carry on kind of thing. You have to stop that and listen to them and, help them in small gradual steps to face their fear and build their confidence. For example, I'm told if a child is painfully shy, which is called socialisation anxiety, you can get them to ask for their own ice cream cone at the shop. You know, so there's a kind of an incentive at the end of it, and you're helping them gradually to address it. Also, I'm told if there are any issues that arise for the child, like bullying, it's really crucial that parents address it immediately.
And Roisin, there is a lot of professional help available. You've spoken to some parents who went down that route.
Yes. Now, I've spoken to Maria in Galway, who says she believes her boy's anxiety stemmed from him being hospitalised as a toddler and having some medical issues. But she described to me how his anxiety was so intense and prolonged, and how it was starting to affect their lives really, and particularly their sleep.
Any change in routine would stress him out. If the right teacher wasn't there to meet him at the door, or if they were to do art on Friday and it wasn't art, or there was something different, or the teacher did something different to what she had said she would do, that would be enough to throw him, like, do you know.
So was school a problem, going to school?
It was any kind of change, like even leaving from home to a new environment, school. Then if he was there for a while and he was okay, going anywhere else new, going swimming, he would cry, he would resist, he would actually physically refused to move.
Was this very difficult for you?
Oh yeah, well, as a parent, it's really distressing to kind of see your child so upset so consistently.
Tell me about the difficulties he was having sleeping. He was suffering from night terrors.
Was it happening every night?
It was happening several times a night. So, we'll say a child would go through 45-minute cycles of sleep, and every 45 minutes he would kind of waken out of that cycle screaming and hysterical and really, really upset. The fact that he was not sleeping and the fact that he was having the night terrors meant that nobody was sleeping, and that in itself takes a toll on him, but also on everybody else. So at that stage we said, gosh, we're going to have to do something.
And they did, they got help. So how did things develop?
Yes, now they found a play therapist in their area, and Maria told me that just after the initial 6 or 8 sessions with her, they could see a significant improvement in him. He was more relaxed in himself and he opened up a lot more. He started sleeping a lot better, thankfully. And she said she'd be very happy to go back and spend the money on it again if he started showing signs of increased anxiety, she was telling me.
And are there tactics then, play therapy tactics parents can perhaps use at home then?
Yeah, now, obviously with older children it wouldn't work, especially teenagers, and cognitive behavioural therapy is the most appropriate intervention for them. But Maria believes that play therapy worked for her son because of the special relationship he had with the therapist. But Sandra Moyles, who is a play therapist from GalwayPlayTherapy.com, she told me that it's also equally as important for parents to play with their children. She recommends at least 10 minutes of quality one-on-one time with your child. And she said it can work wonders to help them release their stress. In fact, she believes it's crucial to their health and happiness.
In this day and age, lives are so busy. It's a case of coming in, putting on the dinner, getting organised, getting the kids to bed, getting them out in the morning. So there isn't a lot of time left for play. So it really is a huge piece that can be forgotten about. Mom or dad could be in the kitchen getting the dinner ready or getting the tea or doing the homework, but the child often feels that they haven't actually been heard. But if you're sitting down with a child on the floor, on the mat, playing with them and making eye contact, they know they've been heard, they know they've been listened to. Therefore, that relieves an awful lot of the anxiety and the pressure and the issues that they've had going on in their little heads all day. It's like they offload on you, and that's what the parents are there for as well, to be able to take that, and it gives you insight into what's going on for them in their world.
I suppose parents forget really that children can't talk to us like adults do. They can't verbalise what's bothering them.
Yes, they have the feelings, they have the emotions, they have the anxiety, but often they cannot put it into words. So if you're in role play or if you're doing anything creative, you will get a huge insight into what is going on for them. It's a great, really, really, really powerful time to connect with the child.
Sandra Moyles there from GalwayPlayTherapy.com. Roisin, you also spoke to a family psychotherapist.
Yes, Derval O'Reilly from the Wellbeing Centre in Galway. She says a child's fear and anxiety can very often be a reaction to a stress or anxiety at home. And it might be seem like an obvious thing to say, Sean, but, parents are very busy people and they're taken up with their lives. And we forget, how our actions or what we are saying in front of the children can affect them. And I also spoke to Mark Smith, leading clinical psychologist, who also says it's really important for parents to keep their own anxiety levels in check, because most of the kids he meets who has difficulties with anxiety usually have a parent with a history of it as well. So Derval O'Reilly echoes this as well. She says, children feed off parents' anxieties. So in the lead up to school particularly, she gives advice, and this is advice which we could take for all situations really, that we as parents should recognise and deal with our own anxiety first and foremost. And here's what she had to say.
I think parents need to be organised, be calm, get up in time. That is a huge thing, the amount of kids who are rushed and hassled. The other thing is to constantly keep checking in with yourself as a parent. How important is it? Losing the rag over a child forgetting its water bottle or something like that is not going to help you and not going to help the child. It affects not only the child, but affects you. It affects the whole atmosphere in the house. And if you're unhappy, it's very hard to fake that happiness for your child. If you're struggling, of course the child is going to pick that up. You cannot hide that. I often think kids have a radar system that any government would love to have, that they pick up, they hone in on all the vulnerabilities, they hone in on the moods, they hone in on what's going on in the house. And just because you think you've hidden your anxiety doesn't mean that the child doesn't know that you're anxious.
So parent has to work on themselves first.
Yes, you have to. You know that thing of when you sit in an airplane, you put your own oxygen mask on first. Parents have to look after themselves first. They have to be doing what they need to do for themselves before they can start doing what they need to do for their children.
Derval O'Reilly there, psychotherapist from the Wellbeing Centre in Galway. I suppose, Roisin, part of that would entail parents, just if they have some issue that they have to have it out on, best done not in front of the children. That would be part of the advice, yeah? Exactly,
yeah. I mean, to just minimise any exposure of kids to any arguments.
And briefly, you have some websites which might offer some useful help?
Yeah, two credible websites which were recommended to me is reachout.ie. This is a brilliant one where actually leading experts in fields of clinical psychology answer people's questions directly on the website. And there's another one called socialanxietyireland.com, which is also a credible website.
Roisin, thank you very much indeed for that. Roisin O'Hara in our Galway studio. You'll be back from the holidays. We'll talk to you here in studio in Dublin at some stage fairly soon. We're back with The Gathering after the break.
Today with Sean O'Rourke on RTE Radio 1.